Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here discussing the collection that I would have if I decided to go into a minimalist collection. If I wanted to declutter most of my makeup and just have a small collection, these are the things that I wanted to keep. Depending on the category, I put like a max amount. So for foundation, I put 2, powders 2, concealers, I think I only have 1, powders 2, I think for lipsticks or lip products, I have 15 lip products, 10 palettes, and so on. I will go through it all with you, and I know that for a lot of people this isn't minimal by any means, but compared to what my normal collection looks like, this is definitely quite downsized. So I'm going to talk you through each category in order and let you know what I would keep if I had a minimalist collection. But before I jump into the video, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. Let's jump into the video. Just to show you the pure amount that I have, this is the first tray right here. This is the most of the products. That's the first tray. I have most of the lip products in here, apart from the lip glosses that don't fit, but yeah, that's the lip products. And here we have the eyeshadow collection that I decided to keep. So again, I know that this is not like the most minimal collection, but considering the space that I currently take up for my makeup and how many things I have currently, this is definitely a downsize. So I'm going to talk through each thing in order and I'll let you know what I picked for each category. Let's start with foundations, and I have 2 foundations picked out, and it's these 2 right here. I have my Airbrush Flawless Filter from Charlotte Tilbury. Currently I have mine in the shade 3 Warm Shade, and this is like a tiny bit too light for me, but it works for me in winter. But yeah, the formula of this is what I would decide to keep. And then I also have my MAC Face and Body. This is in the shade C1. I also have C3. C1 is my winter color. And the reason why I would keep these 2 foundations is because they are my favorite formulas. This one here is quite matte and also full coverage. It's really, really nice. I love this foundation a lot. And then this one here is very sheer. It's very buildable. It's a bit more natural on the skin. And at the moment, I actually like mixing these 2. That's my go-to thing to do if I'm going out, like if I'm not working from home. So I would definitely 100% keep these because I feel like I could customize my foundation the way I needed it. This one would work for if I want really full coverage, and then this one would be more of a sheer option. But like I like doing now, I can mix the 2 to create like my perfect everyday. So those are the foundation I would keep. Maybe in a little bit of a wrong order, but let's do primers next. So I have 2 primers as well, which are these 2 right here. I have the Milk Hydro Grip Primer, which is a really good long-lasting primer, and that's kind of the reason why I would keep that. And then I have the Glow Recipe Watermelon Glow Niacinamide Dewdrops, which I guess is technically like a skincare item. I haven't opened this specific one yet, but I know this is probably considered like a skincare item, but I love using this one as a primer and as a hydrating primer. So I feel like, again, if I kept these 2, I feel like I would have my bases covered with a long-lasting primer and then a glowy primer. So those are the picks for that. So for concealer, I do have 1 concealer picked out, and my favorite at the moment is the Urban Decay Naked Concealer, and I have mine in 20NN. This is my favorite concealer at the moment, but it's definitely not like a all-time favorite. It's not like a holy grail or anything. So I'm currently on the hunt for my favorite concealer. I really want to try the Kosas concealer and the Tower 28 concealer. But if you have any other recommendations for a good concealer, let me know down below. And also, I'm looking for something that is quite high coverage, but it doesn't like get cakey under the eyes, it doesn't crease, because that's my main issue with concealers at the moment, is that they crease or that they just like look too heavy. But yeah, for the moment, I like this one, and I would only really keep 1 concealer, I think, if I had a minimalist collection. The other thing that I actually just remember now that I haven't pulled out is probably the the Becca Nice Movement to Splashbox Under Eye Corrector. That is probably another thing that I would keep, which I forgot to bring out, but that is another holy grail of mine that I would definitely keep if I had a minimalist collection. But regarding concealers, I would only keep 1. For powders, again, I have 2 products. I have a loose powder and a set powder, or pressed powder. So the loose powder that I have is the Hourglass Veil Translucent Powder, and I really like this one. It's probably the best setting powder that I've tried. Again, it's not like 100% the holy grail. I would definitely try other things. I'm looking at the Huda Beauty Bake powder. That's the one I want to try next. But again, if you have any recommendations of a really nice kind of finely milled powder that doesn't end up looking cakey underneath the eyes, let me know, because I'm still looking for something. But I have repurchased this one because it is my favorite at the moment. So that is the powder I would keep right now. And then for the pressed version, I was picking between this one and the Charlotte Tilbury powder, but I actually don't have the Charlotte Tilbury powder at the moment. So the one I decided to go with is the Pat McGrath Skin Fetish Sublime Perfector Blurring Under Eye Powder, which I actually use as a touch-up powder or like a setting powder. And it's really, really nice. I have the light version, but I would probably go between the light and the medium. I do prefer the medium one, but it's too dark for me in winter. But I like that it has a little bit more color to it. But overall, these are definitely two powders that I would keep. And I feel like, again, I would have my bases covered with these two. So I would also try to have a setting spray on hand. And currently, I only have one setting spray in my collection, and that is the Milk Hydro Grape Set and Refresh Spray. And this is like the only one I have. I actually only used this one once, so I can't really say anything about it yet. But I would definitely want to have like a long-lasting setting spray in my collection. And the one I want to try next is probably the Charlotte Tilbury one, because I heard good things about that one too. But again, if you have any recommendations for Holy Grail long-lasting setting powder, let me know. But yeah, I would keep one of those as well. Next up, I'm going to move into cheek products. So let's start with blushes. And I allowed myself to have 5 blushes. Again, that might be quite a lot. I know some people only have like one blush, but considering that I have like 35 to 40 blushes at the moment, 5 I feel like is a reasonable amount. So the ones I decided to go with was the NARS Gina blush. This is one of my all-time favorites, and it's a matte kind of natural peachy blush. Love this one. The next one is my Nabla Skin Glazing blush in Independence, which is more of a kind of neutral, glowy, kind of slightly mauvey, but it's still peachy, kind of, yeah, it's really unique. Like, it has like a peachy base, and then like the shimmer particles makes it a little bit more mauve, and it's really, really glowy, really beautiful, quite a natural blush. I love using this one too, so that is the second one. For a more cool tone blush, I would keep the Pat McGrath Divine Rose blush, which looks like this. It's also a matte one, and I feel like this is a really nice cool tone option. It's still quite neutral, leaving quite like plummy undertoned. So yeah, I feel like, again, that would give me a bit more variety. One of my all-time favorite blushes is this one here from MAC. This is the Extra Dimension. I can't see it even because it's rubbed off. I think it's the Extra Dimension Skin Finish in the shade Fairly Precious. And this one looks like this. I have hit pan on this one. It is quite an orangey, peachy, kind of glowy blush. It's very light, but it is my favorite because it makes you look so glowy and healthy. And I love using this one in summer, so I would keep this one too. And then lastly, for a pink option, I would keep my Clinique Cheek Pop blush in the shade Plum Pop, which looks like this. So those would be the 5 blushes that I would keep. Next up, let's move on to highlighters, and I decided to keep 3 highlighters. I feel like that would again keep my bases covered. So the ones I decided to go with was more of an impactful one, and for that I decided to go with my Rare Beauty highlighter in Exhilarate. This is a super stunning highlighter. I really, really love this one. I would probably before pick the Champagne Pop from Becca, but this one has definitely outbeaten it now. I really, really love this one. So that is the first highlighter I would pick for more of an impactful kind of shade. For more of a kind of subtle and glowy from within kind of highlighter, I would have kept the Laura Mercier Highlight 01, which is just like a really nice subtle highlighter. I really love this one, so that is the second one I will keep. And then the last option would be more of a fun highlighter, and I decided to go with my Space Age Prophecy highlighter from Kaleidos, which is a multichrome highlighter, which looks like this. It probably won't be able to see the shift on camera, but it goes from like a peach to like a green highlighter, and it's actually quite wearable for being a multichrome highlighter, but I feel like this is really fun, and it would give me a little bit more variety keeping this one, just so I would have an option for something more fun if I wanted to. For bronzer, again, I have 3. The first one is more of a kind of neutral kind of bronzer, and I'm not going to show you the whole thing because I'm pre-panning at the moment, but that is my Physicians Formula Body Bronzer. This is used in the bronzer shade, the regular shade. It's more of a light kind of bronzer. It's the one that I'm wearing on my face today. It works really well for me in winter. If I'm quite pale, if I want something more subtle, this is definitely the bronzer I would go for, so that is my first option. For more of a sun-kissed kind of intense bronzer, I would keep the Urban Decay Beach Bronzer in Sunkissed, which is more of a red undertone and it's also deeper. But this one works really, really well for me in summer, so I would keep this one as an option for that. And then lastly, I would keep my Matte Bronzer in the shade Baked, which is just a standard type that most people have. I would keep this one as a cream bronzer option. So those are the 3 bronzers that I picked out. And again, those are all of the cheek products. So next up we have eyes. So let's start with the boring things first. I would have 1 mascara and 1 brow setter, kind of a brow gel, something like that. And the mascara currently that I have is my Lash Paradise from L'Oreal. And for the brow gel, I have my Swatchcraft Got To Be brow gel, or brow and edges gel, I think it's called. But again, any of kind of these would work. I always use waterproof mascara. My favorites are this one or the, what's it called? The Sky High mascara from Maybelline. So one of those 2 would probably be kept. And then for brow gel, I like this one, but I also kind of like soap brows. But just any kind of setting thing like that, I would keep. So those are 2 things. For eye primer, I would again have 2. I would have a regular primer. Currently, I have the P. Louise base in 00, which is the white. But I probably would want to pick up something different. And then I also have the Pastel Roses glitter glue. Again, any glitter glue would work, but I would have 1 primer and 1 glitter glue for eye primers. And then lastly, before I go into eyeshadows, this is technically an eyeshadow, but I would have a brow powder. Currently, I'm using the Burberry eyeshadow in Rosewood, which actually works quite well. It's more of a satin shade, but it works decently well in my brows. So I will keep something like this, but my go-to or my favorite brow powder is the MAC Omega eyeshadow. So I would probably repurchase that one, but I would have a brow powder as an option to fill in my brows. So like I said, those were all of the kind of basic eye products. Next up, we have eyeshadow palettes, and I decided to keep 10 eyeshadow palettes, which again is quite a lot, but considering the size of my collection now, I feel like that's quite a good downsize. And it's funny because when I looked through these, when I followed my Minimalist collection, I followed more kind of basic eye looks, more like everyday things. So it's actually different than if I can only keep 10 palettes, which I did a video on a while back. So it's just quite interesting, but I just thought of like the aesthetic of a Minimalist collection, and I picked out some things for that. So the first one is an easy one. That is my Natasha Denona Gold palette, which is my favorite palette in my collection. I absolutely love this one, and it will give me a lot of options. I'm currently having a shade out in my deco panning, but it will give me a lot of options to use. So that is my first palette. Second, for Natasha Denona, we have the Biba palette. I would keep this one because I feel like it would be a really good staple palette for mattes. And I think with this one, I could pair it with a lot of other things to get some really beautiful looks. Especially my indie eyeshadows, but also just like other palettes, and I think this would be a good staple palette to have. So that is the second one. And then lastly, from Natasha Denona, I actually have the Metropolis palette, which wasn't, oh god, that really changed my lighting, but this one is another one that I would love to keep. So this one looks like this. It has a lot of different options in it. It has a lot of warm tones, some greens. I used loads of options for different shadows. So this is the third palette from Natasha Denona that I would decide to keep in that case. I have one palette from Kaleidos. This is the Club Nebula palette in collaboration with Angelica. This looks like this, and I would keep this one because it would give me a lot of colorful options. I really love this palette, and I feel like if I had a minimalist collection, I wouldn't necessarily keep so many colorful shades, but I feel like with this one I would have some options to do colorful looks if I wanted. So that is the next palette. Next up, we have Pat McGrath, and I have 4 palettes from Pat McGrath that I would keep. They all look like the same on the outside, but the first one is my Bronze Seduction. I just love this palette for like a smoky everyday look. It has some beautiful special shades, and I feel like that's the reason why I will keep so many of my Pat McGrath palettes, because the quality is just so high. The matte blends beautifully, and the special shades are so sparkly. So this is the first palette. I have the Subliminal palette, which would give me a lot of cool toned eyeshadow options. It's like the only cool tone palette that I would need. I have a lot of beautiful shades. You can see some of the special shades shifting there. But yeah, this is the second option for palette from Pat McGrath. I have this palette here, which is the Divine Rose palette. And again, this kind of leans a little bit more cool tone, but it's more kind of mauve cool tones. And I feel like, again, I would have some unique tones with this palette compared to everything else that I've shown you so far. And I really, really love this palette, especially the special shades, but also the rest of the palette and the mattes especially. And then lastly for Palpagraph, we have my favorite palette, which is the Utopian Dreams. It looks like this. This was my first Palpagraph palette and it is my favorite, and I would 100% keep this one. Again, you can do some slightly more colorful looks with this one, but overall it's more of a kind of spring tone, warm toned, kind of neutral palette, and I really love this one, so that is the last option for Palpagraph. Then the very final palette that I just had to include, even though it's a small one, even though you can't get like too many unique looks from it, I just had to include it, and that is my Star Wars Mandalorian palette. I love this little thing, and you all know that, so I would 100% keep that one. It kind of matches my aesthetic a lot today, especially my jumper. But yeah, this is the last palette that I would keep. I just love the tones in here. I feel like it's such a pretty little palette, and again, it's you can make some colorful looks with these greens, but the greens in here I feel like are more neutral leaning. So yeah, that would be my last options for palette. Even though that is the last option for a palette, that isn't my last eyeshadows. The last palette that I would keep is, I would decide to keep one of my magnetic singles palette and just keep my absolute favorite shades. I did actually do an ultimate kind of singles palette in a video. I haven't posted that yet, but I have filmed it. But I currently have a singles palette like this. I'm not going to show you too much because the video is coming on it. But I would pick out the palette like that, where I have every single shade that I would need. I would stick to one palette though, instead of having like 10 that I do now. It would be really hard to pick out my favorites. Right now I do have like a more of an everyday kind of palette, but I may pick out different shades if I could only keep like a certain amount of eyeshadows. But yeah, I will keep one of these as well, as like the last options for eyeshadow. Then lastly, we do have lip products, and I have my little tray here with the lip products that I would decide to keep, so let's go through them. I have 3 lip products from MAC. We have the shade Kinda Sexy, which is one of my favorite nudes. It's more of a peachy kind of nude, but that would be the first option. Secondly, from MAC, we have my absolute favorite red, and that is the shade Ruby Woo. You can see how much I've used of this one already. It's my go-to kind of Christmas color. And yeah, I really love this one. That is the ultimate red that I would keep. So that is the second one. And then lastly for MAC, I would keep the shade Velvet Teddy. It's also nude, but it's a little bit deeper, and I feel like it would give a bit more of a unique tone. Also a cult classic. So yeah, that is the third one from MAC. I would also keep 3 of my Kaleidos Cloud Lab lip paints. I have the 3 right here. I have the shade Adobe, Terra, and Skinship. So those are the 3 shades there. We have more of a kind of typical nude, kind of like more warm tone or terracotta kind of nude, and a sandy nude. So those are the 3 from Kaleidos. For another kind of colorful option, I would keep my KVD liquid lipstick in A Go-Go. I just love this orange color, and again, if I wanted to go for more color, I would definitely pick this one. I really love the undertone. It's a beautiful shade to have in summer, so that is the next color. Then also another kind of more red leaning, but more of rusty kind of red. I have one of my ColourPop lipsticks in the shade Goldie, which looks like this. It is a little bit more of a vampy shade. Again, it is more of a kind of rusty, kind of rich red, but I really love this color, and I think it would also give some nice kind of options to this collection. I have 2 more lipsticks from ColourPop. I have the shade Cami, which is a really beautiful kind of nudie mauve, looks like this. And then I have the most vampy options out of them all, which is the shade Le Freak, which is a really deep kind of burgundy kind of shade, which you can see there. That would be my kind of rich autumn kind of option. So that is the last one of those. And we have 2 more lipsticks to go. Then we have a couple of glosses, but the last 2 comes from Charlotte Tilbury, and we have, of course, the ultimate kind of nude, which is Pillow Talk. Really beautiful shade. Again, a really perfect nude on me. And then for more of a kind of peachier option, I have the shade Miss Kensington, which looks like this. Another one that I really like. It's a little bit of a lighter nude. It's more of a kind of like slightly, like I said, peachier leaning nude. It's really pretty, and that one is the last for the lipstick options. So lastly, for the whole list of items, we have the glosses, which are included in the total lip products. Like I said, I allowed myself 15 lip products altogether. So let me go through the last 3, which are glosses. So first up, we have this one right here, which is from Fenty. And this one is the Fenty Heat in the shade Fenty Glow Heat, which is just like a kind of orangey browny kind of gloss. It's supposed to be one of the plumping ones, but I don't feel like it's uncomfortable or anything. But that is the first one. I used to love the color of that one a lot. For more of a pinkier option, I decided to go with my Maybelline Lifted Gloss in Silk. Again, this is a little more kind of pink toned. I really like this one, both the formula and the color, so that would be another one. Both of these are kind of more creamy colored. I don't really like sparkly ones that much, so if I could keep some, like if I could only keep a handful, I would keep ones without like the sparkle to them. And same with the last one, which is more of a brown tone kind of gloss, but I really love the formula and the color is unique to the other two. And that one is my Tower 28 gloss in the shade Almond, which looks like this. So that is the last gloss and the last lip product and the last product that I have to share with you today. So those would be all of the things that I would keep if I could only keep like a handful of things in each category. So this would kind of be my minimalist collection. Let me know what you would keep. Maybe you already have a minimalist collection. Let me know if you do down below. Would you struggle to do something like this? How many items would you keep? Let me know all of that down below. This was definitely a really fun exercise to do. Obviously, I love all my makeup, but I was thinking like if I could only, like if something happened, if I had to like restart my collection, or, you know, like, I don't know, if we moved to a space where I didn't have any space for makeup, if I had to somehow just minimalize my collection, let's say I moved somewhere, like I moved back to Sweden or moved abroad and I had to leave most of my collection behind and just take a couple of things, these would probably be the things that I would take. I really hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye guys!